Epilogue. The Volvo turned into a suburban house development with a giant sign out front proclaiming Beach Sunflower Villa in huge script font, and I clutched Falzar close to my chest in the passenger seat. I couldn't believe this day had come at last. What was I going to say to Mother? What would she say to me? What would she even look like now? It was hard to imagine any of that, really, but the questions made my heart hammer relentlessly against my ribcage. Adrenaline churned through every one of my veins. After all, I had been waiting for this day for 7 whole years, ever since the police discovered Mother and me living in the middle of the woods at Jackson Park in the small town of Jackson, Florida. I was officially 18 now, the same age I'd supposedly been destined to defeat the great dark wizard Lord Sycorath once and for all in the vast magical world of Elandra. In a way, that was all kind of ironic. After all, after Mother and I had been apprehended by the police, I learned that just about everything she ever told me was complete and utter nonsense, as I had actually been beginning to suspect when I was 11. As it turned out, she'd basically made it all up, including every last detail about Elandra, and made me believe it as well. I let out a sigh as the Volvo slowly rolled along Beach Sunflower Villa's main, smoothly paved road, heading toward Mother's new home. Mostly white, identical 2-story houses lined both sides of the street, nearly every yard full of bushes brimming with bright yellow beach sunflowers. I mean, when you really thought about it, the whole thing was nothing short of bizarre. Apparently Mother wasn't actually even my real mother. The police told me at the police station after holding me there overnight that both my real parents had had a bit too much to drink one night when I was only 1 year old, crashed their car into an electric pole, and immediately died. Although I hadn't known what alcohol, an electric pole, a car, or even a police station were at the time, of course. As so it happened, Mother, a fairly mentally ill woman even back then, witnessed the crash and plucked me, totally unharmed, from the back seat before anyone else could arrive on the scene. A lover of fantasy books, she then kept me hidden from the rest of the world in a small cabin in the park, deluding me with completely made-up tales of Elandra and my so-called magical destiny. Then, after she and I were finally apprehended by the police, she went to jail for what she'd done, where she also received a ton of psychotherapy. However, thankfully, my foster parents of the past 7 years and I just found out that she'd finally been released and had her own home in a nice neighborhood here in southern Florida. Apparently, she was mentally healthy enough to see me again if I was willing. And of course I was. Even though she pulled a shroud over my head for the first 11 years of my life, including keeping me away from other people, she'd still been my mother, and I still loved her. I hugged Falzar even tighter in the passenger seat, just thinking about that as the Volvo rounded a curve. The street, still lined with identical houses, looked like the whole complex was. Hugging Falzar also gave me comfort about what was sure to be somewhat of a nerve-wracking interaction. It really had been so long since I had last seen dear old Mother, but I wanted to see her so badly, as she was truly a good woman on the inside. I just knew it. I almost laughed out loud as I hugged Falzar, though, because it was hard to believe I had ever thought he'd been a real, live baby dragon instead of just a stuffed animal. He'd become quite real to me in my sheltered loneliness, the friend I desperately needed all those years, in a way, even though his personality had really just been part of my subconscious the entire time, his bouts of flying cooked up by my imagination. I had to go through quite a bit of therapy myself to unentwine my mind from the outlandish aspects of those 11 years living in the so-called cabin realm, but all in all, I was much better for it. I had healed pretty much completely and was ready to see Mother again. "Are you okay, honey?" Mom asked from the driver's seat, shattering my reflection on what now felt like had to have been a whole different life a whole lifetime ago. I guessed in a way it had been. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks." Mom was my foster mom. Once Mother was arrested, she'd been deemed too mentally unstable to be a parent, so I'd had to enter foster care, and an awesome young couple wound up picking me up. Mom was incredibly nice, and pretty too, with long brown hair and glistening hazel eyes. Dad was an awfully nice and handsome man himself as well, and would have been here right now too, but he had to be at work this evening. Mom angled her gaze down at where I hugged Falzar extra tightly, but didn't say anything. Finally, she pulled the Volvo into the driveway of one of the endless identical houses, cut the engine, and got out of the car. I took a deep breath, gave Balzar one last huge squeeze, and left the car too, leaving him on the passenger seat. Mom and I walked side by side along the narrow stone path that led to the front door. We climbed the short front stoop, and I rang the doorbell, my heart threatening to clamber up my lungs. What would Mother be like now? What would she say and think of me and my new mom? Sure, she probably changed a lot due to the therapy and her time in jail, but I wondered if parts of the same old Mother I knew and loved would still be there. I certainly hoped so. Footsteps came from inside, and the front door opened. At first, I didn't recognize the woman who stood before Mom and me. She was tall and skinny like how I remembered Mother, but her hair was a striking blonde, not black. But then I recognized her face. Then it hit me. She must have dyed her hair all those years to match mine, to sell the illusion I was her real daughter. Or maybe she did so recently to signify her new, healthier start in life after prison. "Hello, Mara," she said. "Hello, Mother," I said. And before I knew it, we were hugging. I wasn't even sure which one of us instigated or if we both did at the same time. When I pulled back, her eyes were glassy. "It's been a long time, Mara. A very long time. You look fantastic." "Thank you," I said. "You too." Mom introduced herself, and Mother invited us inside. It was a nice little home, and it turned out Mother only lived on the first floor. The second one was another apartment. Still, it was much larger and different than the cabin I'd lived in with her for all those years. Very white and modern looking, with not a single piece of wood or torch sconce in sight, just regular electric ceiling lights. And the living room she led us to had a plush white sofa and an electric fireplace rather than an old-fashioned one with a cauldron. All good signs. Once Mom and I sat on the sofa, she asked us if we would like anything to drink, but we declined. She snagged a little white teacup from the kitchen for herself, though, and sat on the white leather chair across from us. "So," she said as she stirred her tea with a little stir, "I must officially apologize for everything that happened. You know, for everything I did to you over all those years. I only did it because I was mentally ill and didn't know any better, as I'm sure you're well aware. But if there's one thing I can say with absolute certainty, I truly loved you, and still do." Her eyes grew misty again as she gazed down at the clear glass table between the sofa and chair. "I love you too, Mother. And that's all right. I know you weren't entirely right in the head at the time. I forgive you." She looked back up from the table. "That's so fantastic to hear. Thank you so much, honey. Anyway, if you're wondering why I kind of developed some mental health issues, well, you see, shortly after I turned 18, I lost both my parents in a tragic car accident, just like you did." "Oh," I said. "I'm so sorry, Mother." "Me too." Mother slightly adjusted her posture on the couch. "Thank you," Mother said. "I'm sorry that happened to you as well, Mara. Anyway, aside from my long-time boyfriend at the time, they were the closest people to me by far." Her eyes became even blearier, but she kept them trained on me. "I literally did everything with them, and they were always there for me. Also, well, I didn't have many friends aside from my boyfriend. Many of the characters in the fantasy books I was constantly reading became my friends in a way." Oh, Mother. Not that I couldn't relate. Being stuck in that cabin all day for all those years made the characters in Mother's books and stories very real to me as well. And then there was Falzar, of course. "In any case," she said, "just a year or so after I lost my parents, I also lost my boyfriend." The shadows around her eyes deepened even more, and she slightly adjusted her position in her chair. "Oh, Mother, he was really great too. Really faithful, and so fun to be around. And we had so many plans for the future. In fact, One of them was him becoming a cop one day, but he was tragically killed in a random drugstore robbery." "Oh no," I murmured. "That's terrible," Mom said. "Seriously, so many awful things around the same time. No wonder Mother became such a mess." Mother nodded, still idly stirring her tea. "Evidently I never truly recovered from all that. I had plans to go to college, the same one my boyfriend was going to go to, but never followed through. Instead, I dropped out of high school and started working as an ice cream truck vendor to make ends meet since I didn't have any other friends or family to count on." This I had known about. The police told me shortly after they'd apprehended Mother and me that was what she'd been doing every day when she claimed she'd been out hunting gulags, and the so-called gulag meat she brought home was really just raw chicken from the local grocery store. It explained why she left her black witch cloak in that dark blue sack by the park trail. Every time she left or returned to the cabin, she swapped out her cloak for her ice cream vendor uniform, or vice versa. This was all before I found you in the back seat of your parents' crashed car, of course. I think, in a way, I thought finding you was life's way of telling me I could keep you as my own. You know, since I lost both my parents and you lost both of yours, like we were meant for each other or something. Of course, in reality, that was utterly ridiculous and not right of me, but, well, anyway, now that I'm out of jail and much better, I've been able to work my way up in that ice cream vendor company, and now manage a whole line of trucks here in southern Florida." "Oh, wow," I said. "That's fantastic, Mother." "Yes," Mom said. "That's great to hear. Congratulations." Mother's smile stretched from ear to ear. "Thank you. And also, thank you so much for agreeing to come and meet me, Mara. I know I'm not your mother anymore, but I would love it if we could catch up every once in a while. You know, read a fantasy novel together here and there, perhaps even have some gulag stew for lunch or dinner." She smiled again as she winked at me. "Or you know, some cream of chicken soup, really." I laughed. "Sounds great, Mother. I'd love to." "I think that's a wonderful idea as well," Mom said. Mother beamed and finally took a sip of her tea. "Excellent. In that case, why don't we kick it all off with a little cream of chicken soup tonight? I've actually prepared some just for this occasion." Mom and I both agreed, and we all ate together in Mother's new kitchen, where we caught up on a lot of other things that had transpired over the last 7 years. Then Mother and I hugged again before Mom and I left the apartment. "Goodbye, Mara," Mother called. "See you soon. Say hi to your father for me. Oh, and Falzar too, if you still have him." I chuckled. "I sure do, and I will. Bye, Mother." Mom said goodbye too, and we piled back into her Volvo. I waved as we left, Mother waving back from behind her apartment's front door screen, and Mom honked the horn. "So," Falzar said as we pulled out of Beach Sunflower Villa. He was perched in my lap again. "How'd it go?" "Oh, fantastically," I said. "Really quite well. I can't wait to see her again. Oh, and next time, you should come too."
"Excellent," he said. "I'm so glad to hear, and I would absolutely love to."
Mom frowned at me. "Who are you talking to, honey?" "Oh, no one," I said.